Welcome back to the Rise with Anita podcast. On today's episode, I have the joy of welcoming a leader whose journey reminds us of what true success is, not just about titles, but impact. James Keyes rose from the humble beginnings in Grafton, Massachusetts, to becoming the CEO of two Fortune 500 companies, 7-Eleven and Blockbuster. Yet, what makes his story so extraordinary is not just the boardrooms he's led, but the way he has chosen to live a life of heart and service, carrying his father's wisdom that the key to freedom is to learn as much as you can every day. Jim has embodied what the role of a lifelong learner is. The commitment shines through not only his career, but also in his calling. Today, he is a best-selling author of Education is Freedom, The Future is in Your Hands, a book that's both a message of a movement reminding us that education has the power to transform lives, preserve democracy, and unlock human potential. From CEO to author, from business leader to social change agent, Jim has shown that leadership at its highest level is about lifting others. Through his nonprofit Education is Freedom, he has helped raise nearly $500 million for scholarships and student support, proving that success is sweetest when it's shared. So today, as we sit down with not just a corporate visionary, but a change maker, a wisdom keeper, and a leader who continues to serve with purpose, please join me in welcoming James Keyes. Welcome. I'm so honored to have you here.
Great to be with you. This is going to be fun.
It is. So before we dive in, I usually like to start off before we dive into like the resume of like what's just bringing you joy in this current season.
Bringing me joy. I know this sounds crazy, but everything brings me joy. Chocolate chip cookies bring me joy. Ice cream, vanilla ice cream brings me joy. Unfortunately, I have too much joy lately. No, I'll be serious for a second. What has been bringing me joy most recently is the privilege, and it really, really is a privilege of being able to share the message of the transformative power of learning all over the world. So I'm in 4 continents in the last 6 weeks and talking about how powerful learning can be and how it really can change your life and how it is the ultimate answer. I know this sounds crazy, to peace on earth, because it takes away fear. So I'm having a blast. It gives me great joy to be able to spread this word.
I love that you bring it back to what you're doing, not just also finding joy in the little moments, because what I always advise my ladies on is not to look for like that big next thing, just to find it in the kind of minute areas of life, whether it's like smelling a flower, as you brought up, like the chocolate chip cookie, having those like little moments of like actually like taking the time to like enjoy the moment, be present with it. I think that's such a beautiful thing. And then on the other hand, being so enlightened with your purpose and your mission and your calling, and how on a greater scale that really does impact the world and just the trajectory of like the understanding people can have.
I'm so glad you started with that question because I'm a busy guy. I'm a typical corporate executive. I don't sit around and contemplate the power of gratitude and joy and all. I mean, I don't. But as I wrote the book, I started to dig in and I started to ask questions like, why are people so upset? Because the average person is pretty grumpy these days. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of hatred in the world, and there's a lot of anger and frustration and all that stuff. Just turn on the news or flip through social media, and you see a lot of that stuff. And I thought, well, what is it? And I have, in the course of studying everything from ancient philosophers to the Dalai Lama, come to the conclusion that we're all capable of changing the way we look at life and channeling gratitude and channeling our ability to be happy. And gratitude's a big part of it. Just being thankful. Wake up every day and think, wow, what new adventure am I going to have the opportunity to have today, even if it's a new flavored chocolate chip cookie, you know? But it's gratitude that keeps us balanced. It's hard to be angry if you're grateful, right?
Absolutely. It's the antidote to anger, actually.
It really is so often. And, so many of us, it's within our power to change our mindset, and yet we get caught up in all this stuff. So, yeah, it's, hey, and this is learning for me. I'm not trying to pretend I've been this like perfect human being running around filled with gratitude and joy my whole life. Um, but I do believe that is possible, and I'm working on that now. And I can honestly say, for me, every day is a new adventure.
Absolutely. You know, you touched on the news, and we're, as we sit here recording this, we're a few weeks out from the Charlie Kirk incident and a number of different incidents that have gone along with it this month. And I've been reflecting on how, while I haven't spoken on it publicly just yet, how majority of our entire systems, if we just had more education, more knowledge, more emotional intelligence, it would actually be a place of being able to come to at least an agree to disagree rather than take these violent actions. And I'm not saying that we would have like a perfect harmonious world, but I do feel like we would see a lot less of what we are currently seeing.
We would, and I'm going to. It's such a sensitive topic now because it's so fresh, and I don't know when this will air, but it is a pretty fresh thing, and there are a lot of very, very hurt feelings about that incident. But I'm going to take the challenge of taking on one of the things that Charlie did say, which I didn't agree with. I agree with so much of what he said. Obviously, he said a lot of really good things, but one of the things that he did was to encourage people that they didn't really need a formal education.
Mm-hmm.
And he did this on college campuses, saying you're wasting your money, you're wasting your time in some cases. And I just I wish I had had the opportunity to know him, because I would have had one of those prove me wrong sessions with him to be able to say, look, yes, there is an abundance of information available. This is a portal to unlimited learning. And you technically can learn anything you need to learn without even going K through 12 or college. But most of us are human, and most of us really require structure and discipline in our life, and that's what college brings. So many people are saying, it's, all these crazy subjects. I don't care if you're studying basket weaving. You're getting the structure and the discipline to be able to really be good at basket weaving, and probably in the course of that experience to have collaborative interaction with others, which is critical, to be able to have a deadline, which is critical, responsibilities, which is critical. And all of that comes with that formal education. K through 12, post-secondary, more important now than ever before, because it is the antidote to fear and anger and all that stuff. The more breadth of knowledge you can have, and the formal education gives you the discipline to support that, gives you the framework needed, for most of us anyway, the more you can have, then the less fear you have to experience, and hopefully the more joy you can have in your life.
Beautiful. So I actually wanted to ask you right about that as well, because for me, now I personally left college midway. However, in its place, what I have done is a lot of non-formal training. So
Sure.
I've taken a life coaching certification. I've been in and out of the insurance industry. So I've had different modalities of training that still provide that discipline and that training.
Sure.
So for me, what it was when I heard your story was kind of like that, the variant of being like just college educated versus a lifelong learner.
Yeah, yeah. I'm an advocate for both. I am, here's the way I look at my college degree and my graduate degree. They were a license to learn. What they helped me with is the methodology behind learning, because I don't think I could have had the discipline needed to dig deep and to research the way I can research today without that more formalized training. So, yeah, it's number one. It's about learning. I don't care how you learn, lifelong. Number one important. But here's the practical side, and this is where I'm like, oh, it just kills me because, I mean, keep in mind, I've had as many as 1 million people in the course of my career, directly or indirectly, reporting to me between all these big companies, global corporations. And at the end of the day, people are like products. We're like consumer products. It sounds harsh, right? But we are. Each of us has a brand. And that brand is pretty darn important. And what I tell, especially young people, don't be suckered into thinking that you can learn everything you need to learn on your own. Because that brand, where you had whatever formal education you had, is going to be with you for the rest of your life. And when people interact with you, or whether it's raising money for your entrepreneurial effort, I need to go raise $2 million for this company, the very first thing the bankers, the lenders are going to look at is your resume. Yeah. And they're going to say, where'd you go to school? It's as simple as that. And it may not be fair, but this is the practical reality for at least the next probably 20, 30 years until someday. In fact, one of the things I'm advocating now is an education operating system that will track our learning from the time we are born, basically. All of our transcripts, all of our grades, all of the certifications, all of the experiences that we're able to log will be able to be captured. And there will be a time 20 years from now, at some point in the future, when your brand will reflect the cumulative learning that you've been able to have. If you leveled up in the system, then we'll be able to record that. Until that happens, the practical reality is that the first question someone's going to say is, where'd you go to school? And we should be sensitive to that and not throw it away, because it's going to be pretty important for a period of time. That was my challenge. That was my challenge. I mean, there's a lot of people. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, they're all going, you don't need to go to school. Just go learn coding. Now think about it. AI, 10 years. I'm going to go learn coding now, and that's all I know? Yeah, that job may be gone in 10 years. Thanks, Elon. You're fine. Worked for you.
Literally.
Yeah, I think so. Breadth of knowledge is so critically important.
I personally, as AI is becoming a bigger thing, have been thinking about that. Like, how can you make yourself irreplaceable from an AI bot? Where we always are going to want to up-level that skill, but at the same time, we cannot be sole dependent on the AI.
Thank you for answering. Thank you for asking. I think I have the answer. And at least here's my opinion. AI is going to go super deep on any given subject. And I'll give you a great example. I mean, I'm a pilot. You'd see my office. I'm surrounded by airplane stuff and pilot stuff. I love to fly. And if I didn't have a degree and I didn't have the corporate trajectory I had, I would have loved to be a pilot. But today, if I was to say, I'm 19 years old, I'm going to go be a pilot, and I don't have a degree, and I don't have anything else that I know how to do, in 20 years, by the time I'm 40, pretty good chance my job is going to be replaced by an autonomous aircraft, or at a minimum, one pilot per cockpit. As my plane today, I can fly at 41,000 feet, single pilot. This was unheard of 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now I can do it today. So this is coming. So my recommendation to everybody, especially somebody early in their career, is the breadth of knowledge is critically important so you can pivot. And the whole world's pushing you to specialize. You should go decide by 8th grade what you want to be. How the heck do you know at 8th grade? I didn't know when I was 20 what I wanted to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want my kids to specialize that early. I want them to have breadth of knowledge. So that's one. There's a second thing that I think is critically important. I call it the meta skills.
Mm.
So you might say, okay, what are meta skills? It's a fancy name for soft skills, right? Because this is what makes us human. It's things like curiosity. Will AI be curious like a person? I don't know. Maybe not. AI will be very smart, but smart isn't necessarily that native curiosity, like, I wonder what makes this work, or I wonder who this person is, what they're really like. So, curiosity, creativity. Is creativity something that you'll really be able to harness the emotion inside, the expression inside a piece of art? I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's an important human aspect. Humility, gratitude, things we talked about, integrity. Will I ever trust a machine versus trusting a human? And so all of these things I call the meta skills, which are
Mhm.
basically the humanities. They're the things that the ancient philosophers all studied and taught. And yet we've kind of pushed those aside in favor of science, math, and engineering, which are equally important. But in an AI world, I believe breadth of knowledge and those very human subjects and human traits, meta skills, if you will, are going to be more important than ever before. It will be what distinguishes us as humans with heart, with compassion, with caring from a machine.
Absolutely. And we are humans as humans, we have the need for connection. And personally, for me, I don't think you'll ever want to connect with just an AI bot for the rest of your life. I mean, there's probably people who would, but
Yeah, oh yeah, I've got a few friends who they'll be happy never to talk to a human again. They'll just be just give me my bot.
so switching gears, you often talk about how your father's wisdom shaped your life, that
Yeah.
freedom comes through learning. Looking back, what would you say were some of the hardest lessons you had to heal through as a leader in order to fully step into your purpose?
Probably the hardest lessons come down to the need to overcome my natural human instinct of hurt feelings, fear, guilt, victimhood, all that. And it's, look, I'm human, so I'm normal. Something bad happens and I go, oh, woe was me. The difference is I try to catch that. If I catch myself becoming a victim, I go, okay, wake up. If something in the universe happens to you and I can't control it, I'm not a victim. I need to learn from it. And if I learn from it, I move on. And I'll be better for it. But if I allow something externally to affect me, the universe wins.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And I'm not
And just
controlling my
that,
own destiny at that point.
yeah, absolutely. And just that acknowledgement of the need to have the whatever the circumstance is, like identified and how you're feeling. I think that that's where a good pattern interrupt ends up happening because you're actually like, oh, I can choose now to give it a different meaning or rewire what it means for me.
Exactly, exactly. Sadly, it takes many of us our whole lifetime to realize that there's not a darn thing we can do about what happens externally, but there's everything we can do about our reaction to it and our response to it. Whatever the problem is, it's in our control to be able to respond to it in the most favorable way possible. So it's so critically important. It's such a big part of waking up every day with gratitude and with happiness and joy, because you'll never be able to do that if you're the victim and you feel like it's somebody else doing something to you. It's their fault.
Amazing. Um, so you actually went from small town beginnings to leading two Fortune 500 companies. What part of your personal story would you say most people tend to overlook that created your success today?
Probably a single, I mean, the single biggest thing I mentioned, overcoming fear, and not being able, not having to take things personally. Um, uh, I tell the story about from the time you're a kid, and I was one of those kids. I know, teacher, I know, call on me, call on me. And you can imagine what happens, right? The spitballs in the back of the head, the hazing after school. Hey, you know, you're this or that. And I mean, because other people will pick on you for things.
Hmm.
Anytime someone stands out, the Australians call it the tall poppy syndrome. I've never heard that until I went to Australia. Yeah, apparently the tall poppy is the one that gets lopped off because they keep the fields at an even height or something. And that happens to humans when one person tries to excel. Often they're standing out, and there's a lot of pressure to them for them to conform. Well, that's in effect someone else trying to determine your identity, trying to put an identity on you. And I refused to let that happen from the time I was a kid. And I don't know how and I don't know why, other than I was thankfully I saw it. And maybe it was a little hunger because I said, well, these kids all live in comfortable homes with heat and, air conditioning and food.
The
And
basics.
the basics, and I don't have any of that. So I'm on my own here. I don't care what you say. Tease me as you will. I've got to succeed. Yes, teacher, I've got the answer. And that same scenario will follow you through your life, whether it's on the job, whether it's in the community. There are people that will try to establish who you are and what you are, and it's so important that you have your own identity and nourish it, and your own brand, because your brand, as I mentioned before, ultimately that's why people want to deal with you. They're going to look at you and they judge your packaging, right or wrong. They're going to judge your packaging. They're going to look at you and make a determination, and that's not always fair, but it's real. And then they're going to most importantly decide what's inside, just like a product. That's
Yeah,
really what counts.
absolutely. I think what's interesting about your answer, though, is it comes back to being authentic
Yeah,
and just knowing your authenticity and what actually makes you happy versus what others around you are trying to enforce
sure.
or not enforce, but more
Impose.
so
Impose on you.
impose.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. A friend of mine,
So,
Stedman Graham, tells the story really well. Stedman wrote the forward for my book, and I love the way Stedman describes it. He's like a 6'5" African American male. So when he was growing up, he was a basketball player. That's what people said. Okay, you're a basketball player, and that kind of became his identity for a while. And he was like, "Wait a minute, no, I'm good at a lot of things. I can play basketball, yeah, but that's not who I am. I'm not going to let those people out there tell me what they think I am based on their perception of me. I'm going to create my own identity." And now he goes all over the world. He's written 12 books, and he speaks. It's a beautiful thing to hear him walk into an auditorium with 500 young people and say, don't let anybody tell you who you should be or who you are. Your identity is yours. It's uniquely yours, and it's up to you to nourish that and to always, always preserve that identity of who you are. It's a beautiful thing.
beautiful. So, in your experience, what separates leaders who are simply managing companies from those who truly actually inspire their employees? And
Well, I'll quote Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker, some of your audience may know him or not. He was like management guru for many, many, many years. And Drucker, had this wonderful saying. He said, difference between management and leadership. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right thing. Big difference. And so a lot of times we get caught up in doing things right, and that may be, enforcement of this or that, and KPIs and blah blah blah, and we lose sight of the bigger picture. And leadership is doing the right thing, and the right thing often is leading through inspiration, not through, trying to force an issue, trying to force an organization to move. You can usually, in the short term, have a lot of success by fear and intimidation. It works, let's face it. People can be sheep. You scare them, you bully them, and you can move them. But the long-term sustainable value that you want to create in an organization is through inspiring your people to come together and collaborate and work with you, not for you.
That is actually so beautifully put, because I think a good leader actually makes people pulled to work for them and to actually be a part of the mission versus being told or having people who are there just solely for the paycheck.
Exactly. I'll put it in consumer product terms. I can't help. I'm an old retailer. I'll go back to consumer product terms. In retail, we have two ways of moving products on the shelf, right? There's push, 2 for 1, discount, 20% off, buy one, get one free. I mean, those are push tactics. Advertising, in some ways, is a push tactic. Buy this, buy this, buy this. A pull tactic, I like to use Starbucks. They didn't advertise. They don't do buy one, get one free. And I've never seen that at a Starbucks. Pull tactic is, I'm going to create the environment, the experience, and the quality of product that makes you want that product, makes you want to come to Starbucks. Not feel like you should because it's cheap, or it's discounted, or there's a promo.
It's about the experience.
Because of the experience and the quality of what's inside. Brand, right?
Absolutely. That is so beautifully put. And actually, that kind of heads us into our next question, which was, if you could distill one or two principles of leadership that every aspiring leader should embody daily, what would you say they should be?
I have 3 that I put them in my book as really the foundation of all leadership, and I'll share them. I call this my gift. If I have a gift, if you say, how did you get from a 3-room shack to leading 2 Fortune 500 companies, it's my gift. And my gift I characterize as 3 things. 1, change, because I saw my growing up in tough circumstances as my superpower. Adversity that I faced gave me the ability to deal with change so much better than people who grew up with everything kind of easy. So I can deal with change. Perspective gave me a different perspective, and it gave me a level of resilience, dealing with change. That's hard for a lot of people. So I can deal with change. Now, if you think about it, all commerce begins and ends with change.
Yeah.
It's something happens, something changes, and you go, oh, okay, I'm going to satisfy that need, and you're compensated. But what happens as soon as you're successful? I'm not going to change anymore. And inertia creeps in. So change, number 1. Number 2, if you don't have confidence, you can't do anything about the change. You'll roll up into a ball and say, I don't like this. So even if you acknowledge change and say, I'll accept it, if you don't have the confidence to do anything about it, to take positive action or to learn from it, if it's a bad situation, then you'll fail. And then the third is clarity, because even if you accept change, even if you have confidence to deal with it, if you're not carefully listening, You don't have inbound clarity, so you really understand what's going on. And outbound clarity in the way you communicate. You could have the best plan in the world to deal with that change and have all the confidence in the world that we can do this, but if you can't articulate it, no one can execute it, and you'll fail again. So 3 things. It's a pretty simple formula. Deal with change, recognize nothing you can do about external change, everything you can do about your response. Have the confidence then to do something about it. And confidence isn't something you're born with. You can learn confidence. You can learn to be prepared to deal with this stuff. And then third is clarity, that simplification, so that you're not befuddled by all the complexity around you. Cut through all that, simplify, clarity of communication. You got this.
I love that. And actually, it reminds me of another C word, because I know you're big on your 3 C's, but conviction.
Yeah. Conviction is very important. And I mean, I could go on with other C's. Commitment. Commitment, critical thinking, curiosity, creativity.
So
You want some more?
we're expanding the C's. Leadership.
I actually tried to, in my effort to simplify and clarify, I used 9 C's in my book of what to learn, how to learn, and why. And the what to learn, of course, change, confidence, clarity. The how to learn, critical thinking, curiosity, creativity, and the why. The why is even the most important. It's collaboration, something that many of us really struggle with. Cultural literacy, because the reality is, to collaborate, you're going to have to work with people who aren't like you. You have to understand them and have truly cultural literacy, understanding their differences and their culture. And then the third is that brand issue I talked about, character. What's inside? Integrity, humility.
Beautiful. So I just want to acknowledge one thing, and that is the fact that you always bring it back to the integrity and the character, because I think without integrity, we don't have a foundation to walk on.
So true, so true, and it's so easy to get short-term wins without integrity. You can lie your way into anything. You can fake your way into anything. It works, sadly. You can scare your way into anything. And then at the end of the day, someone's going to call you out, and someone with that integrity is going to prevail, because no one wants to deal with someone they can't trust, rely on, count on. So for sustainable, and this is probably the essence of it, you want a quick win, go ahead, cheat and lie. It can work. I mean, some people get away with that for a long time. You want sustainable, reliable, put it in the bank kind of success, that integrity is critical. That character is critical.
Absolutely. And then I think there's also that karma that follows you. So whether
there's that. Yeah. There's that.
what you put out, you get back to you.
Yeah.
Maybe not in this right instance, but eventually it comes back. So I do think that integrity is one of the key foundational pillars for anything that you do, both as a person and especially in business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So leadership isn't just about vision. It's about how you respond when storms hit.
Yep.
Looking back across your career, what were some of the most difficult times that you faced as a leader, and what inner qualities helped you move through it yourself, but also guide others through it while you were in the season?
Yeah, I've got a couple I could mention. I had this thing called Blockbuster that I took on. But people don't understand the similarities between Blockbuster and 7-Eleven. But the reason I had the confidence to take on the challenge of Blockbuster is that 7-Eleven went through almost the same stuff. Too much debt, financial crisis, lost sight of the business model, and bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And I'm a young guy at the time, and remember what I said about growing up with all that adversity. It was like, well, I kind of been here before. What are they going to do? Take my house? They already did. you know?
Try me.
Yeah, bring it on. I've been there before. So during that experience at 7-Eleven, everybody had their head down and were frustrated, and there's a lot of, you can imagine the corporate politics and the anger and the victimhood in a situation where people spend their whole career with a company and all of a sudden it's bankrupt, all their equity's gone. It's a very frustrating and very sad time for many companies. But I had the belief that we'll get through this, and I had my head up and kept working harder, not finding excuses not to work, which many people did. And I stayed the course, and when we came through, I was rewarded for it, and the company was rewarded for it because it forced us to change, to adapt. And it gave us the confidence, yeah, we can come out on the other side. We can do this. So Blockbuster really was just another bite at the apple of an apple that I was quite familiar with what happened at 7-Eleven. Now, the only difference is that I didn't have time at Blockbuster to see it through. I arrived in '07. The financial markets collapsed in '08. My timing could have been better. But again, I could have blamed the universe and quit, or hung in there, stayed to see it through, which we did, got it restructured, got it sold to Dish Network, and it was Dish Network that ultimately decided they were going to take a different direction and close down the stores and put the Blockbuster brand on the shelf. But I get to look in the mirror and say, I did the right thing. I saw it through. We were successfully able to restructure the company. Didn't have the outcome I wish, because had I had another couple of years, then I think we would have had a very, very different result. Trajectory, yep. But again, nothing I can do about that external force. The 2008 financial crisis wasn't something I caused, something that I had to respond to it in the best way I possibly could.
Absolutely. Actually, going back to that Blockbuster story, I wanted to hit on when we had first met. You brought up the story of when you met Warren Buffett and the piece of advice he had given you. So
Yeah.
could you touch on that and actually kind of re-share the story for our listeners who don't know?
Sure. It was actually kind of a funny story because here I am. I'm talking about confidence, change, all this stuff, right? Well, I'm also human, and so by the year 2008, we had really had some great results at Blockbuster, and we had bought a streaming video company from the studios. We had a huge competitive advantage to Netflix. But when the market collapsed, all of a sudden I went from the hero, because literally third quarter of 2008, Carl Icahn is singing my praises as one of my directors, and the street is going, this is great, man, they've really turned this thing around. And then 2008 financial crisis hits, and all of a sudden I'm the GOAT. I'm the guy that, not the GOAT in a good way, the GOAT in a bad way. I'm like, oh, he screwed
The
it
one
up.
who's
Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
I didn't screw it up. I didn't bring on $1 billion of debt. But it's the reality. So, and I was telling the street I wasn't going to file for bankruptcy, and yet, because I didn't believe we would have to, and yet the rumor was being planted on the street that Blockbuster is going to file. Perhaps planted by some who would want Blockbuster to file for bankruptcy because they could profit from it. Bottom line is, I'm out saying we're not going to. The rumor on the street is we are, and the New York Post prints a half-page photograph of me with a giant Pinocchio nose like that long. And that it hurt my feelings. And it was full color, wasn't pretty. All my buddies from New York were calling saying, "Hey, nice picture," teasing me about it. The headline was "Blockbusted," and so right around that time, I was invited to a an event at Bill Gates' house, and it was called the CEO Summit. So Bezos was there, and Gates, and all these CEOs. And I was there, and I was getting some food, and Warren Buffett was there at the food table, and he shook my hand. I reintroduced myself. He remembered who I was, and I started apologizing. I started saying, I'm at Blockbuster now. I'm getting the crap beat out of me. I probably ought to leave. I didn't start this mess, and it's embarrassing, and blah blah blah. And Warren, and you can almost hear him say it, right, in that calm, mature voice of his. He said, "Well, Jim, would you rather be sitting on the bench or at the plate?" And it was exactly what I needed. Because I said, "No, I'd rather be at the plate." He said, "Well, get back up there, dust yourself off, and take another swing. You'll be fine. It's not personal." It's like, oh, it's not personal. It's business. I'm doing the best I can. I'm using the best information I have to do the best things I can possibly do. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it's really not personal. I'm giving it my best shot. That intervention caused me to stay and see the company through, avoid liquidation, et cetera, and get the company restructured and sold. So we all need, every once in a while, we all need that little nudge, someone, little angel to come along, say, "You've got this."
Absolutely. And actually, it kind of ties back to your point about identity, because in that season, it seemed like you were already identifying with the business and how the business was doing as part of how you were performing on a personal level.
Yeah, exactly. I was letting the external world impose an identity on me that wasn't true. And I was letting that happen. But it was a conscious decision from me to fall into the victimhood trap that we all do. And again, I'm just a human. I'm just a regular guy. So I'm vulnerable to the same kind of insecurities that anybody is. Except
Absolutely.
at least I've got a little higher level of awareness. When it does happen, I can hopefully pull myself out of that ditch and say, that's stupid. You're really in control of your own destiny.
That's a beautiful message.
Thanks. Well, in fact, the subtitle of my book is more important than the title of my book. The title, Education is Freedom. People are like, yeah, probably. That's a good title. But the subtitle, The Future is in Your Hands, it's so powerful. Yes. It's what we all forget. We are in control of our own destiny.
Absolutely. Every second that we have a choice we're making, the decisions we make, from who we are with to the conversations that we're speaking and reading about, they all play a part of what our conscious level of identity is. And I think that reminder of that conversation you had with Warren was so interesting, because it's like, it shows the power of also having a powerful mentor or someone to speak life into you in the moment that you need it. Exactly.
But it's also so important not to let that external world tell you who you are, because here's the difference. I heard this one time, and it was so true, that it's easy to judge based on the choices, or based on the decisions someone made. But what we don't know, looking on the outside in, are the choices that person had. Think about the power of that. It's so true. Very easy to judge someone's decisions. What decisions did they make? We don't know what choices they faced. That may have been the best choice that they had of all the choices that were available to them at that given time.
Beautiful. And actually, that's something I often encourage people to think about, especially when it comes to like their parents or past generations. again, I work with a lot of women, so it's like we all have that story, right? Of
Oh yeah,
what we think they should have done or could have done to have a better result. And I'm always like, well, they did the best they could at the time with the knowledge that they had.
yeah.
And so it's a beautiful reminder. And speaking of decisions, though, at what point did you start to think about that conversation with Warren and how you could have potentially steered it differently?
Well, I
I
will
had to go
probably.
there. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I mean, I will probably take to my grave. Why didn't I just go, Warren? Why don't you write the check? You know, come on, you want to play? Tell me to get back at the plate. Why don't you? Why don't you be my coach here? Get in the game. No, I didn't. I didn't. And I've had people say, well, why didn't you just ask Warren to, come in and give you some support? And I'm like, pride. I don't know. And seriously, that's what it was. It was, no, I'm too proud to ask for help. But he might have been intrigued by the business model. I'm sure he would have at least given me an audience to say, come tell me what you're doing. But I didn't even go there. It was like, no, I'll do this on my own. I'm not going to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. I know that now.
That's a beautiful reminder. And I think for me, the first time I heard you say that, I was just like, oh, wow. And not in a bad way, because how often do we, out of ego or pride or just fear, to your point, stop ourselves from asking for what we want in the moment that we have it? So
Exactly.
for me, it's about taking that conscious action to try to be as bold as possible and get myself out of my own way.
Exactly. Exactly. It's so true. And you know what's crazy about this? We're so oblivious to it in the moment. I honestly, I can't remember where we were when that question was posed. Well, why didn't you just ask Warren? And I don't know if you recall the look on my face, but that may have been the first time anyone even asked that. And I was like, oh shit. I don't know. I should have. And since then, now I'm like, why didn't I? you know. But when you're in the moment, it was just, and it was probably pride that kept me from, or maybe fear, but there was something that said this is not appropriate to ask for help. Why not? You know?
So do you think that was from your conditioning, perhaps from how you grew up? Or was it just,
I just think it's human. I think it's human. Many of us are just uncomfortable, you know, asking for the help that we might get. I mean, think about so many people that are struggling, and this is trivial stuff. This is like, at the end of the day, it's not life or death, but think of the people that are really struggling and won't ask for help. And it's there, and so many people would help them if they would just reach out. And yet, many of us as humans keep it all inside and don't want to expose our, because that's what asking for help does, is it exposes you.
it's, I think, maybe a fear of vulnerability to an
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah. What if they say no? So what?
But what if they say yes?
Exactly. It's exactly right. It's exactly right. But you're right. And I am, like I said, I am a human, so I have to acknowledge my own human frailties, and that's one of them. I won't ask for help. And honestly, this happens all the time. Philanthropic stuff, right? I can't tell you how many philanthropic organizations I support. Write the check, volunteer my time, do all this stuff because I love giving, but I hate asking. Now, and that's crazy because as much as I give, I have every right in the world to go back to people that have asked me and say, hey, now would you mind helping to support this effort that I'm doing over here? Won't do it. Why? Same thing.
So, would you say you have a difficult relationship with receiving?
No,
Generally.
no, I'm fine with receiving. I just have a difficult relationship with asking, and I'm sure it is a sort of vulnerability that I've been so fiercely independent for so long, had to rely on no one, that the very idea that I have to ask for help in anything is something I really struggle with. It's a shame because I should, but there are a lot of, I think, benefits that go with the adversity that I call now my superpower, because it gives me a fierce sense of independence, but it's almost too fierce.
I can relate to this. And in fact, interestingly enough, this is something I was walking through in this current season of my life, where I had someone ask me, well, why don't you just speak up and let me know what's going on? And I was just like, well, I can handle it. And I
Yeah.
think part of it is I grew up an only child. So you kind of get this, I will find the answer, I will find the resource, and I will deal with it myself.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
a beautiful thing, but then I think, to your point, becomes your own detriment.
It does. It can. It can. And that's when I talk about collaboration in the book as one of the seasons why it's important that we learn. That's one of the things that I'm probably not as good at. I'm willing to collaborate if others come to me, but I won't go seeking collaboration, and that's one of my weaknesses. But at least I know it, and I recognize it now.
Well, thank you for your vulnerability. So, after leading companies through incredible change and disruption, what would you say is one piece of wisdom you would advise today's leaders who are navigating uncertainty and the rapid innovation that's kind of coming up?
Yeah, I think those. I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you the professional, and then I'm going to give you the personal. The professional, change, confidence, clarity, more important than ever in a fast-changing world, because the more quickly things change, the more fear and resistance you're going to find. It's to a large extent right now. I'll give you a global example. There's a trend toward nationalism. Build big walls and borders and pull everything back. We don't need any other countries, and that's not just the United States. Many countries are doing this nationalist thing. And a step back from this and use perspective now, not perception, because the perception is, yeah, we need to bring everything in. Look at it with perspective. With technology today, and as rapidly as technology is advancing, Apple just came out with a new version, or they haven't launched yet, but a new version of the earbuds.
AirPods?
Yeah, the earpods that will do simultaneous translation. And, right now we can get on a Zoom with anybody anywhere in the world and communicate and work together. We're not going to put this genie back in the bottle. The
Absolutely
world is
not.
shrinking. So this whole trend for nationalism is an example of fear. It's like, oh my gosh, well, they're different. They're taking my business. They're doing this. They're doing that. We better hunker down and pull back. I think what's causing all of this is a reaction to how rapidly the world is shrinking. But the reality is the world is shrinking, and that means more opportunity to collaborate, to work with others, to exercise our cultural literacy, not less. So, but that's a very typical reaction that's caused by fear. So change, confidence, clarity, more important professionally than ever before. You ready for the
Beautiful.
personal one?
Yes.
All right. All right. Well, personally, you want vulnerability, or you want me to do the?
No, go for it. I
Okay.
would love for
All
you to
right. Well,
share what's on your heart.
you said most of your audience is female, so that the dudes in the audience would be going, ah. All right, so here's the reality on the personal side. I am an example of someone who got too caught up in career, success, progress, got to keep working, got to keep working. And the one thing that I blew right by was the importance of family for too long. So I don't have any children. Could have, would have, should have, don't, because it was too much of a commitment on career, success, et cetera, et cetera. And then, guys have a biological clock too. Well, maybe I don't, but I got married and ran into a biological clock issue, and it was too late. But it's not too late for everybody. So that balance, my point is, that balance between success, career, and life is a pretty critical balance.
That's such a beautiful answer. I think that's something a lot of women today are facing as they're now in this role of being the career person, having their businesses or corporate careers, whatever it is. And I know myself, I've been a little guilty of being so focused on, well, career and like the next milestone, the next movement, where you can't forget, like, okay, maybe I should look for a partner. Maybe I should actually settle down. Granted, I'm still 30, so we've got time, but as someone who is 30,
Yeah.
I do hear it now
But
quite
look
a
at it
bit
this way.
of like,
You can have it all. You really can have it all. There are so many examples of very successful professional women with families. You can have it all. Many of us tend to think it has to be one or the other. And in fact, there's,
integration.
yeah. I'm not one of these guys that says, you should stay home and make babies. What's the matter with you? You're a woman. You should do this. No, that's not me. I think the world needs more professional women, not less. I mean, it's the only thing that's going to keep guys under control in the grand scheme of the global issues. But I say that tongue in cheek. But I do believe that you can have both. And just like a woman, a guy has a practical limitation on, you just get to the age that you say, oh, geez, I probably should have had kids, 10 years ago or something. But it's easy to get caught up in today and not think about
Tomorrow.
family and the bigger things in life. In fact, one last thing I'll share. I'm asked all the time, people go, what's the matter with these kids today? The Gen Zs and everything. Oh, they're a mess. They don't have the same values we had. They don't care about work, and they want work-life balance. And I'm like, duh, yeah, maybe they're smarter than us, you know? Because what happened, I think, during the pandemic, I think a lot of people did stop, take a breath, pause, and say, hey, maybe there's more to life than just work. And I actually think that's a healthy thing. I don't see that as bad at all.
Absolutely. I think for me, that was when I was finding my purpose during that pause.
Yeah.
But also, it was the first time I remember that stillness created this point of like, if I don't have to commute every day, and it starts planting these seeds of what else you can use your time for, how else you can spend your time. And so I think that you made a beautiful point in like our generation with the concern of just wanting that integration and wanting that, I hate the word balance, but bringing sort of that balanced mentality of you can have it all is
Yeah.
such a beautiful point. And before we wrap up with the last couple of questions, I just want to acknowledge you for just everything you've been doing. I really want to commend the fact that you have such a big heart. For me, I believe that when I bring on a person, my whole perspective is soul meets strategy. And there is no point in doing what we are doing if we're not doing it to serve others at a very high level. So I really want to acknowledge you just for how incredible the work you have done beyond being a CEO is.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it. And you never feel like you do enough. But I mean, I can't emphasize enough, and I was really blessed to learn this at a really young age in my corporate career, that that social good and shareholder value are not mutually exclusive. You can actually do both.
Yeah.
And and too many companies today, they're getting criticized for doing good things socially and culturally, and that's it's very sad to see, because corporations, I think, have a responsibility for the communities that they're in, and the communities they serve. That as CEO, I saw my job as a responsibility, really, because I had a giant megaphone, and to be able to do good from that position of responsibility, I just saw it as an incredible privilege, and I think a lot of CEOs really do. They do see that role as a privilege, and they try to do their best to do it. It's not that perception that people often have of CEOs. There's some of them.
Absolutely.
There's some like that, but I think most of them have really good hearts.
So, with everything you've accomplished in business, art, aviation, philanthropy, what do you truly hope your legacy is? And what do you want people to remember about your leadership?
I hope that this message of knowledge, and I balance it with faith, and I'm going to say this in a non-religious way. I can use in my book. I use Paulo Coelho. If you want something badly enough, the universe will conspire to make it happen. Uh, Alternatively, if depending on your religion, if you pray hard enough, the universe will conspire to make it happen, and your faith will come through. And the reason I talk about a balance between knowledge and faith is that knowledge, to me, is the antidote for fear. I mean, I can learn how to do anything. I learn my way out of any problem as long as there's an answer. I can find the answer. But then there's some things that you don't know, some things that you just can't get the answer to. And that's where relying on your inner strength, your own faith, your own belief will help you overcome those tough times. So that combination of faith and knowledge is like a double set of armor. There's absolutely nothing to fear. And if we can overcome fear, then we can overcome that natural human instinct toward anger, hatred, and violence. So, what is my legacy? Hopefully, people will say he's the guy that reminded humanity to use a combination of knowledge and faith to bring peace on this planet.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
So, finally, I have a quick fire round for you. Just simple little answers
Sure.
as much as you can.
Let's go. I'm ready.
So, a book that changed your life, not including yours.
Oh, darn. The Alchemist. I love The Alchemist.
That's actually one of my favorite.
Yeah, and it's a quirky little book. It's silly that, but it really did that powerful concept. If you want something badly enough, the world will conspire to make it. The universe will conspire to make it happen. It stayed with me since I read the book in college, I think.
That is amazing. Talk about actually a book that literally changed your life.
Yeah, yeah. And I use it today. I quoted Paulo Coelho in my own book.
Beautiful.
But the reason I like it is it's a non-denominational. It's universal. It's like I can go to. I gave a talk in Kuwait, and I used The Alchemist, and I used Yoda, because Yoda says the same thing when he's teaching Luke. You must have knowledge to be a Jedi, but may the Force be with you. Right? Same thing.
Yes. A daily non-negotiable?
Ice cream, vanilla. Sorry.
Love it. Bring some
Gotta have a
joy
weakness.
now.
No, bring my ice cream. I gotta have my ice cream. That's non-negotiable.
A word that describes your current season.
My current what?
Season.
Season? As in
Hmm.
the Four Seasons?
No. Um, Kind of like a metaphor for what your year or what your life is looking like right now.
Yeah, no, I'm always in the spring. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
I'm
We're
always in
going
spring.
literal.
Always in spring. Yeah, everything's always blooming.
A song that
Life,
instantly lifts your
rebirth,
mood.
rebirth.
Rebirth. I like that one. I'm actually just coming out of that season.
Ah,
um, a song that instantly lifts your mood.
um, Leonard Cohen's Alleluia.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
One lesson you wish you learned sooner.
Uh, to not take anything personally.
Beautiful. And honestly, same. Best advice you've received in one sentence.
Learn as much as you can because your education, your knowledge is one thing no one can ever take from you.
What is your superpower?
Resilience, the ability to deal with change in a very positive fashion. I call it relentless positivity.
And lastly, one thing you want women to stop apologizing for.
Their physical appearance,
Beautiful.
because it comes
And
down to what's inside. Again, it's for all of us.
thank you. And what is the best place you want people to connect with you?
Oh, I've got a website, jameswkeys.com. It's Keyes. And
Linking it below.
oh, good. And I'm out there on social media if you want a good laugh. I have a 24-year-old social media manager who makes me do silly things. Um, I stopped short at chicken banana. I didn't do that. Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not doing that one.
You're like, I refuse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I've got some other pretty goofy things out there. So it's at J Keys Author, Keyes, J Keys Author, on TikTok and Instagram, and I'm up there on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Well, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your stories, and your heart with us today. What stood out the most is your journey isn't just about leading companies, it's about leading yourself with curiosity and courage. From your father's words on education is freedom to your experience at the highest levels of success, you remind us that we are all lifelong learners. You've shown us, excuse me, that true leadership is about service, resilience, and vision. For those of you listening, I hope you're walking away with not just strategies, but with soul shifts, ways to heal your setbacks, embody the leader you're becoming, and rise into the freedom that's already waiting for you. Jim, it's been an absolute honor. Thank you for inspiring us to learn, to grow, and to lead with heart.
Thank you, Anita. I appreciate it. And I'll leave you with this that since you mentioned it, as you know, I'm a pilot, and one of the things I like to encourage people to do is learn to fly. First, lead yourself. Right? Isn't that great?
That's amazing and absolutely. Actually, fun fact. That's on my bucket list of like things I want to do is learn to fly.
And it's a
So
great acronym.
again, it actually is.
First, lead yourself.
First, lead yourself. Love that. Um, Again, thank you so much. For those of you who are listening, please like, subscribe, and message us on Instagram or Facebook. Let us know how you like this episode and how it best served you. And until the next one, bye bye for now.